Hello, my name is Tim, and I'm the author of Model Railroad Switch List and Manifest Formatter, or MRSLAMF Formatter for short. And in this video, I want to cover a new feature in version 1.07 that gives you two sets of preference settings to apply to your documents. So if we look here at the main window of the program, we see that we have a preference button, and if we open this up, this gives us access to the large number of preferences that are available to customize our documents. We can change the logos in the header, the railroad names. We can change fonts and font sizes, page sizes and orientation, whether it's 1 or 2 columns per page. We can turn off and on a large number of options here about whether we want to print train or route comments, if we want to suppress comments on no work locations. Location comments can be turned off and on. JMRI has a feature where text after a dash or a number after a dash or a alphanumerics after a dash and an open parentheses are not printed on the documentation. So we offer that as well, but it's an option. You can turn it off or on. You can choose whether you want to print the train data or not, which is the empties, length, and weight. For switch lists, there are a number of options. And then when we go to car data, if you watch the other video on car and loco preferences, you've seen that there are a large number of options here where you can customize the amount of information and the order of the information, the colors, and everything else on how your car and locomotive information is displayed. And all this information applies to both switch lists and manifests printed out by the document or by the program. And so that gives you a large amount of flexibility in how you want your documents to be displayed. However, sometimes you want to be able to change some of these settings for certain documents. Perhaps you want your switch lists to be formatted slightly differently from your manifests. Maybe you want your locals, which have car movements. Maybe you want those printed in landscape orientation as opposed to portrait. A number of different things you can change. And so right now with the program prior to version 1.07, you would have had to change the preference settings prior to printing the document. In version 1.07, on the preference page, we offer a new feature down here called Activate Secondary Preferences. And if we click that and hit Save, we'll now notice that on the main window, we now have a new button here. And this new button is for secondary preferences. And we still got the general preferences button or primary preferences, but we now have a secondary. And if we click on the secondary, we'll see a couple of things. Most things are the same. A couple of things are different. First off, in secondary preferences, the file paths preferences are blanked out. You can't change those from here. That has to be done in the primary preferences. But you can change the logos. You could change the railroad name. You can change the fonts. You can change any of the car settings, the colors, anything that you wanted to change. Paper orientation if you wanted to go to landscape mode. And how these secondary preferences are applied is what's unique here. You see here we have a keyword secondary prefs keyword. And so what happens is when you process a document, a CSV file, it's going to look at the file name. And if the keyword that you type in here is contained within the file name, it will apply the secondary preferences. Otherwise, it will apply the primary preferences. So, how might you use this? If we go into my JMRI setup, again, this is a Windows machine, but it works the same on Mac and Linux. And we go into, and I'm sorry, I went to JMRI, go into my profile of Harlan Sub, operations, CSVs for manifests. You notice that all manifest CSVs start with the word train and then have the train name within parentheses. Similarly, for switch lists, all switch list CSVs start with the word location and then the location name within parentheses. So one way to use the secondary preferences keyword here would be if you wanted your all switch lists to be processed by the secondary preference settings, you could enter the keyword location, and that will hit on every single switch list CSV file, and those will then be processed by the secondary preferences. Meanwhile, the files such as manifests, which don't have the word location in them, would be processed by the primary preferences. Similarly, if, say, you have a local train that's just shuttling cars between the yard and a industry within the same location, you could, say, type in the word local, and if you have that word in your train name to where it shows up as, the file shows up as train and in parentheses something local, where the word local matches the file name, then it's going to apply those settings, these secondary settings, to that file and not to any of the others. It also could be set up as it originally was when I opened it up. You could name it with the location name of a town or location on your layout, and now any train or switch list file that has that location name in it will apply the secondary preferences, and all others would apply the primary preferences. So this is how secondary preferences work, and it can be quite powerful for you to be able to customize your documentation. And so you can set those up, and then when you do your processing, you'll see that the documents apply the appropriate preferences based on that keyword setting. This provides you a lot more flexibility in how you can customize your documents. So if we come into our secondary preferences, and just for purposes of demonstration here, we're going to set our secondary preferences to landscape. We're going to set our keyword to loyal so that it will pick up any train with or switch list with loyal in it. And we're going to change our color scheme. We see here we've got green set up for pickups, where the other one was primary was blue and red. This one is green and magenta. So we'll be able to visually see how this works. So now if we come in to process a train name, If we process our 101 train, which is one that we've used in a previous demonstration, notice that it doesn't have the Loyal name in it. Even though it's going to Loyal, the train name didn't have that in it. So it applies the primary color scheme, the primary settings, and that would be how that works. But if we have a train that file that has the word Loyal in it, such as this Loyal to Corbin passenger train, and we tell it to process that manifest. And so now with this manifest, we see that because it had the word Loyal in the file name, and that was our secondary keyword, secondary preferences keyword, it applied the secondary preferences settings to process this file. And so it's been printed out in landscape mode. It's got the different color scheme that we had set up in the secondary preferences. For the cars, it's showing load, where we had eliminated that from the primary setup. And so, we're even showing destination and destination track. So we have more information being displayed, and it's making good use then of the wider landscape mode print. And that's how the secondary preferences work and provide you with tremendous flexibility in how you want to format your documents for your model railroad. I hope you'll find it useful, and thank you for listening, and happy railroading.